Okay, let's give this a go. Hopefully everybody can hear me. Oh, I guess so. My phone is up. So I was gonna just kind of go through some of the maps that I've made and kind of relate them. You know, so this one on screen is accelerators, chakras, and volcanoes all put onto one map. So if we just kind of pay attention, I don't think you can see my mouse on here, but down here from the New Zealand area, and if we pay attention to the line that it follows, and you know, United States and South America, it's gonna kind of correlate with other maps. So these are accelerators, chakras, and volcanoes. Okay. Next map is particle accelerators. So I know I had numbers on mine, but these are where all the different particle accelerators are in the world. So if we look again, starting in New Zealand and going up across Australia and up through India and Europe and the United States, a lot of these things are in very similar places. Notice the big bunch of them around CERN. So there's more than one at CERN by the looks of this map. Next one is earthquakes. So this is one of my maps that I put dots on for a very long time. So each dot is for an earthquake that happened, and this was 1 week's worth. Again, if we notice how it starts at New Zealand with the quakes, it always follows those islands, comes up through Europe. We always have it Alaska, across the United States and South America. All this stuff is happening in the same places. So we could look at lots of different info, and we just are going to keep getting the same places. Okay, this one's a little harder to see, but all the little pink dots are power plants. So let's see if I can get it a little bigger. Don't know if I'll be able to, but maybe. There we go. So all those little tiny pink dots are all the power plants. Notice how they're, in the same places as the accelerators, and they follow the quake paths as well. So, really all I'm trying to show is all this stuff happens in the same places. I've tracked so many different things, and every time there for a while it was a jaw dropper because these things are all in the same places. I'm not quite so surprised about it anymore. So this one was a little different because I did crystal caves, pyramids, obelisks, supervolcanoes, deep volcanoes, deep quakes and stuff like that. So I just put a whole bunch of green marks for the volcanoes because there's just way too many volcanoes in this world to mark them. But crystal caves are in light blue, pyramids are in gold, obelisks are red. I've also got some giant tree stumps on there, super volcanoes and volcanoes. The deep quakes have Ds. Again, this is all following the same path. So yeah, so this is all the different, you know, small things that we looked at, and all of these kind of follow this. By the way, hi Sandra, and hi Godbody, and anyone else. So all this information relates to these Nazca lines. So if we look at these Nazca lines and look at, you know, some of the past and everything that we just looked at, all this stuff is following these lines also. You know, I'm not really a believer in coincidence, so, you know, that tells me that the area that all this stuff is falling on is this grid. It has to be. You know? So yeah, I don't have any other explanation. If anybody else does, I'd love to hear it. But the best I can figure is, you know, what FPV kind of, you know, he taught me that about a lot of this stuff, and then we as a team, we found all this different information and realized that it's all just following the same path. It's the grid. You can see the grid, centerpiece, and we've got our equator, and different halo systems, and so on. But you know, every one of these I could show you, and they're all gonna kind of look the same. So earthquakes, got accelerators, we have all kinds of different information here. But yeah, they're all the same. You look closely at this very light, very small pink lines, but those are all power plants. All these are the same paths. What do I predict about hurricane season? I really don't have any predictions about weather. You know, I could probably look at 2 weeks worth of earthquakes and predict those, but the water's kind of new for me. But what I can tell you is when you look at this map, we just did a thing about water. All of our major whirlpool currents are right over these angels that are in the water. You know, so think about that there's 4 in each one of these squares, and if all 4 are spinning because they're accelerators, then the 4 together would make a massive spinning whirlpool type motion. You know, a lot of we had a really long, nice talk about water. There's a video on my channel for that one. But as for predicting, You know, I don't really know, but if you take everything into account, the fact that there's accelerators underneath of our oceans, you know, they're adding CO2, they're fracking, they're doing all kinds of crazy stuff. You know, things could probably get kind of ugly. But if they do, I blame the governments and man. You know, planned events maybe. But for the most part, our world runs on a system. It's all a time system. When things seem to get out of whack or crazy, it's usually because of what man's doing to our world. What areas do I see a major concern on the West Coast? Well, for earthquakes, what I would concern about is the fact that it kind of went silent, you know. But the thing about California is it only, you know, and off the coast and Oregon, and you know, they only get a very large quake once in a while. And the reason that is because it's constantly expelling energy. You know, the whole West Coast from Montana through California, up through Canada, and, you know, down through Southern California and New Mexico, that's all like volcanoes. And so the pressure releases through these volcanoes, even if they're extinct anyway. And California is constantly having smaller magnitude swarms. You know, you might not feel them all the time, but it's constantly lit up with 2s and 3s. Hello, Tom. So, yeah, the fact that it's constantly swarming like that is why it doesn't get too many very large quakes over there. Now, this last week or so, it slowed down in California. So, if California or Oregon, Washington is, or even up into Canada, like Vancouver Island, if they're going to get a large quake, what's going to happen is it's going to go really quiet. There's not going to be any earthquakes. And then the pressure builds. And when it builds and then pops without releasing, that's when the large quakes happen. You can see on the screen, you know, right there in central Mexico to Central America down to the north of South America, there's 27 volcanoes there. You know, we've got 3 super volcanoes in the United States, tons of extinct ones, and a lot of the pressure just releases. Well, with Yellowstone, the same thing. So what I've noticed is with Yellowstone, it's kind of the same thing as California. It's constantly releasing pressure. All those geysers, you know. Could Yellowstone blow? Absolutely. And we should probably tell the scientists to stop fracking it. Tell NASA to leave it alone. You know, because NASA has now took to the ground in the oceans, and they're fracking Yellowstone and other super volcanoes and ancient volcanoes. And you know, again, if that sucker were to blow, one, we wouldn't really be around to talk about it, at least that half of the United States. And two, it would probably more or less, I think, be a man-made reason. Good morning, Blood. Mainly the fracking, it's probably not a good idea. You know, they frack the supervolcano over in California too. So that's definitely what we need to stop doing, is messing with these things. But what volcanoes are is really the the release point for the waste of our world. If you think about all the stuff that goes on below our surface, and how it's, elements, and they're mixing, and alchemy's going on, and all this other technology is kind of running things, and we have accelerators, and we have all this stuff going on. Well, it's heating up, and it doesn't need to use all of that stuff. So there has to be waste. So since Earth itself isn't wasteful, the waste actually then comes out of the volcanoes and becomes new land. So it's kind of like a waste and recycle system. And all of these, lava tubes and stuff are kind of connected. When I do the Google Earth and stuff, all the lines that I put on there and stuff, a lot of those are lava tubes. Not all of them, but a lot of them are. Yeah. Yellowstone probably could. I don't know if you were around when Mount St. Helens blew, but Mount St. Helens blew, what was it, 1980? Something like that. And blocked out the sun for like 2 weeks. That's not nearly as big as Yellowstone. So. I suppose I'd worry also about what it's going to pump out if it was to explode. Not just blocking out the sun, but all the ash and glass and debris that would end up raining down on us. I'd worry about that more than blocking out the sun for a time being, unless it was going to be an extended period. But I mean, some places in winter they don't get sun for 3 months almost. So yeah, exactly. Mask over the face. Yeah, it would really screw some things up, that's for sure. But yeah, everything, as far as I can tell, the things that I've looked into so far is following the blueprints. It's following the grid. Ice Age Part 2 would wipe out mankind. Yeah, but the things I think about more than an ice age, because that would take, a lot of water and then freezing temperatures to make it become that. What I think about more than that is, well, them fracking into a lot of ancient lava tubes or old ancient volcanoes and getting those flowing. Okay, that would be one thing that would be a concern. Or how about this one? All the dams they have. All the dams where they've got all this water, kept into a specific area, and most of the time kind of looming over pretty nice sized towns and cities. So what if they released all the dams? I think I worry more about what man can do than the earth itself. Not that I don't worry about the Earth, but the Earth runs on time systems. Man is, well, these days pretty horrible. And a lot of the ones running things don't really like us or want us around, all of us normal folks. So I wonder what they're trying to do, or the chemtrails that they're dropping on us. Those contain elements that if you were to heat up with the stuff that they're dropping on us, it could, it could petrify us. After looking into stuff like that, and it wouldn't really take that long. Hey, Sean. So yeah, there's a whole lot of different things to look into. If you wanted to really think what they could do to us, I would worry about the chemtrails and vaccines and what's in the chemtrails, what are they dropping on us, and what could happen because of that stuff going on us. Heat it up, like I said, and it would lead to almost an instant petrification. So yeah, just wanted to kind of show everybody that all this stuff falls on the same areas. It all follows the same paths. And the paths are, these Nazca lines. These Nazca lines are the blueprints to what's going on. These things are, a lot of this is the result of the technologies. We've got, like I said, accelerators, volcanoes, chakras, earthquakes, particle accelerators. We have power plants in pink and big volcanoes with numbers. The numbers are how many volcanoes are in that area. And all this good information. Which, like I said, we were looking at crystal caves, pyramids, obelisks. We even threw some giant tree stumps in there. So I'm wondering, I'm just going to ask Sean, do the CO2 areas look anything, any of these areas that are dotted with these earthquakes maybe? Just curious if that falls right along with it. I've never really looked into the CO2 and stuff information, but what I have there is earthquakes. Just wondering if the CO2 spots are the same or close. Do they even mark them? Is there even any maps? I don't even know if he's still here. Yeah, the luminaries. I got some really cool a lot in the U.S. areas and East Coast in Africa. Okay. Well, the United States, I suppose, would be close, and the East Coast of Africa, I've only got I've got 2 volcanoes that happened that week anyway. But the thing about Africa and and earthquakes is, don't get a lot of data from there. It's always kind of been bothersome because, you can't truly Right. That's what I figured. They didn't have pinpoint markers and maps. So let's see, one more thing I'll show you guys. Just because we had talked about it before. Well, I might not be able to, never mind. I should have set it up first, sorry. So I probably won't be able to do that, but anyway. Yeah, I was hearing your stream earlier that only happens half the year. I wonder why that is. Is it cold or warm when it happens? Is it the warm part or the cold parts? Cold. That's interesting. Oh, there we go. So we were just talking about dams. Let me see. Well, I guess it really doesn't look like that many, but they're pretty big. Here's some of the dams. These are just the largest dams. Carbon monoxide produced from fires. Remember summertime, that's how you remember now. Good stuff, yeah. So we had talked about, just mentioned dams for a minute. So these are just the biggest dams in the world. And, you know, that's the kind of stuff that I think about is what man could do, which they're really doing a lot. But, yeah, these are dams, the biggest ones anyway. There's plenty more, but these are the largest dams of the world. So they've pretty much, you know, they control everything, and at any point they could you know, wipe us out, I guess, if they chose to. But they wouldn't, because they wouldn't have their good little slaves. So, and this one's kind of a new one. This is just something that I've been playing with because, you know, the zodiac. So, you know, most people think the zodiac kind of goes around in a circle, but I found this other map that has the zodiacs like this. I have 13 lines, but based on a lunar calendar, there would be 13 months, which, you know, ancients used to run on lunar calendars. So I've got 13 zodiacs. So if you would think about the zodiacs, maybe, possibly, this is just a theory I'm kind of working on, as what if the zodiacs are the gates? You know, the red dots are the world chakras, which, wow. I'm sorry, the red ones are the vortexes. The yellow ones are the chakras. But every single chakra falls right next to one of these zodiacs, and all the vortexes except one fall right on top of the zodiac. Thought that was really neat. Don't know what to make of this one yet, though. Like I said, I'm still kind of working on it. So I guess tonight's just look at weird different map day, huh? So might as well look at this one. This one's really cool. This one is, can anybody figure out what this one is? Just by looking at it? Anyone seen it ever? So it's flight path. And what's revealed here, you knew. Good deal, Sean. What's revealed here are the very high, far, far, far north pass, which, you know, is how they hide the globe. They're not just going in a big circle or anything. They're actually taking these very high northern routes and hiding the plane, basically. We don't see up that high. And that's how they're getting from one side to the other. And making everyone think they're just going around a globe. And they're not. So, that's a neat one. Yeah, so look into those northern flights, because they do exist. From what I understand, they're hard to catch. I don't watch the flights, but I know that's how FPV figured out what they, you know, how they were hiding in these flights and calling it a globe, is they're just taking this very high northern route. Lines are very faint, but that's what they're doing. It is what they're doing. They're sneaky little shits. And we're going to look at this one just because I think it's really cool. And, well, it's my stream, so I can look at what I want. Just kidding. But I really like this one. It shows the true topography of the world. You know, not only shows how very pushed upward our fault lines are, but it also shows a lot of land that probably used to be there. The lighter areas are more shallow. So when you see these very light blues, almost a turquoise, that's very, very shallow. Very, very shallow waters. The darker it gets, the deeper the waters. Just like on Google. But this would be more like our map. Still not perfect, but I do like the way they have Antarctica stretched out instead of just being a little ball. So. But yeah, that's it. I don't really have anything else to talk about. I just wanted to kind of go over different maps. Really. And kind of point out how a lot of these paths are the same. They're following the same paths. They're on the same, paths. Go. Anybody know what this one is? Well, it is the jet stream. However, what's very interesting about this one is this map is actually all of the different paths the ISS has taken. Pretty interesting, huh? That it just follows the jet streams. Because that's what those are. They're the jet streams. They're the helixes. But yeah, these are the ISS paths. Let's see. It's not marked on the map, but that's what it is. So, yeah, that's where ISS travels. And the very last one I'll just show is this very cool one I found. Oops, of the different chakras. And I liked it a lot because it actually had their names and little photos of, where they are. It was just pretty interesting because, like on Hawaii, it's called the Earth Spinner. In Peru, it's called the Birth Center. Down in South Africa, it's called the Earth Spinner. I don't even know what they mean by that. Never really heard it called that or anything. In Bali, it's called the Purification Center. New Zealand's called the Water Spinner. It's kind of weird. It was a weird map. I like downloading weird maps and making weird maps too. So. And that's it. And there's our ley lines. So I think I'll just wrap it up for now. Thank everybody for coming. But yeah, just look into this stuff. Notice that everything, realize how many things follow this grid. Thank you. I appreciate you guys all coming. So if you find any other correlations that kind of go along with these same kind of paths, hey, let me know. It takes a long time to look into stuff and map it and look up all the different information. I'm excited for you too. I can't wait to see what it comes up with your research. Stick it on the map. You might be surprised, especially if it follows the same kind of path that I was just showing. No coincidences. But thanks everyone. Have a good evening.